culture is not about a policy. Culture is about living it day in and day out and having those expectations around it. And every component of a mid-year is how you show up culturally amongst your teammates. And so you need to live within your culture in order to actually even get a performance rating at the end of the year. Part of your remuneration and your bonus is part of how you show up day to day. It starts with yourself before it even starts with your team. You got to figure out what's important to you and how you show up. And it doesn't mean you have to appease everyone. That's not what this is about. This is being respectful for various opinions and thoughts. Collectively, one person cannot change culture with an organization. It takes everyone and buy-in.
Welcome to Strategy and Culture Conversations, a podcast that explores the role of strategy, culture, and transformation in building thriving organizations. I'm your host, Trina McCarroll, and I'm glad that you've joined us today as part of our communities of courageous leaders from across Alberta. In each show, we'll share our success stories and lessons learned as we create thriving, high-performing organizations and shape the future of work in our province. Let's dig in. Thanks so much for being here with us, Lowell. Really appreciate your time. And you and I have talked lots in the past about strategy and culture and everything in between. And so I'd love if you could introduce yourself and a bit about ATB and Ag.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name's Lowell Befus. I am the Regional Sales Director for ATB Agriculture. I manage a team of 12 currently. I am based out of Camrose, Alberta, and my team ranges from Drayton Valley to Lloydminster, and as far north as Cold Lake, and as probably far south is about Stettler. So I've got that central band across Alberta. My team has a book of just over $1 billion in loans that we manage to over, let's say 400 to 500 customers. I have been in agriculture finance for 23, almost 24 years, and really love leadership, really love agriculture, and the finance, I guess, would come in third, but that's my job, so that's what I have to sell. So, but really like the leadership in the agriculture part. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much. So you and I have talked a bit about strategy, and so I'd be really interested in your thoughts on, obviously, strategy can also be at the top executive level in terms of really big companies and setting the strategic direction for the entire organization. But then there's also strategy on business units that they're trying to carry out that big strategic direction within their business unit. So what are some of your thoughts on strategy and the role that it plays in your work?
Yeah, well, I think the expectation for me from my VPs and the CEO of ATB is to have a strategy plan. Like it's actually good timing. It's our fiscal year end was the end of March. And so we're 14 days into our new fiscal, and we have been spending the last month and a half writing strategy for this year. And the strategy isn't new every year. You kind of find areas that you're kind of building upon from the year before and how you take it. So I enjoy two levels of strategy. There's the macro strategy, so very high level that your leaders give down to you. And then there's a micro strategy that comes in at my level. So I'm asked to lead my team like a franchise. This is my business unit. I have goals that are set out for me, and I have a lot of freedom and flexibility to be able to figure out a way to achieve those goals. Now, what's neat about this way of doing business is actually the relationship managers who work for me, they also have goals, and they've been given the autonomy to really run their business unit, which is just themselves, the way that they see fit to try to meet the goals that are set out for them. And there's accountability and all that kind of stuff, of course, included in that. But so for myself, you need to have that macro and micro look at the strategy, and you need to ensure that your strategy lines up to your leader above you, I guess is the best way to put it, or the organization strategy.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. That alignment between the goals coming both from the top and then coming down, but then also able to go back up between like what's possible and some of the information that customers are able to give and adapt to the changing market conditions, right, that your relationship managers can sense as they do their work. So then the information flow can go back up both ways.
That's right. You have to be able to be agile and be able to adjust on the fly. And in the end, you're not going to do business if your customer's not happy. So, or the customer's not going to come to you. So you have to be able to adjust and make changes as you move forward.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Excellent. You mentioned accountability, and I think that accountability is a huge component of success for teams and for organizations, the accountability. And then you and I have also talked in the past about a bit of care. So I like to have a formula around accountability plus care equals, say, courageous leadership. Like you're really wanting to do a great job at work and also be a great place to work. And I know ATB certainly has that reputation about being a great place to work. So what are your thoughts on culture and the importance of culture to your work and to your team?
Yeah, culture is everything. Let me preface first. Culture is everything, but culture can also be too much that it becomes too much or it holds you back. And I can dive into what I mean by that shortly, but without an organization that has a defined culture practice, it becomes very hard to entice employees to stay. If the organization that you're going to apply for does not have a defined culture practice, it usually means that you'll find dissatisfied employees within that because there's no outlet to figure out how to make sure that you're like your job and that you want to stay in your job and you feel rewarded in your job. And so there are some key points that I think culture needs to do, and around accountability is one of them. So 100% accountable. So what does 100% accountable mean to me? It means that I'm accountable for my day-to-day work. It means that when I screw up, I'm accountable and I acknowledge it. I clean up quickly and I move on. And I talk to anyone that might have been inadvertently impacted. So with that comes two talking points. One is, I wrote a note here now. Always seek positive intent to about what people are saying. So a lot of times it's our human nature to always try to look negative on what people are saying. And in the workplace, there's that part where you need to really seek that, trust that it's positive. And if it comes across as not, then be curious, dig in, and ask why.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's a really, really useful starting point of assuming that positive intent. And then if it lands funny or if it feels off, to then check in.
Yeah, exactly. Ask a question.
Ask a question. Have that curious mindset and check in with their assumptions. Keep going on your culture thoughts.
Well, the second one after that is when you're trying to seek positive intent is to talk straight, responsible. So many of us, and maybe me in my earlier part of my career, we avoid conflict or avoid confrontation. And conflict sounds like it's going to be a battle royale, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. But we avoid conflict because we don't want to make anyone upset. But if you were to talk straight responsibly, and the key word there is responsibly. It's not just talk straight and be, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this, but anyways, be an a-hole to someone. That's not talking straight, responsibly, right? But people can't read minds. And I find when people don't talk straight responsibly to begin with, what actually happens is water cooler talk. You go back to your office, you complain to anyone who's willing to listen. Maybe you go home and you complain to your family member and you haven't solved anything. And then what you end up doing is pushing it down and you're not, then circles back to that 100% accountable. You're not being accountable to your team. You're not being accountable to your organization. And really, even though the real problem might be something small, the bigger issue becomes that you haven't dealt with it and you haven't tried to figure out how to work together.
Fully agree. I was, often raised on if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. But that doesn't solve anything.
It pushes it down usually and makes people unhappy.
Exactly. And sometimes it grows bigger and bigger as time goes on. And what could have been a small thing to deal with becomes a big barrier between you and another person. Or it was a misunderstanding. And it was never meant to be something between you and that person. And so really taking that. Yeah.
Exactly. So these are the three areas that if your organization does not have defined culture, these can't exist. Because if you've got a top-down mentality or a yelling boss or a boss that likes to yell and put control over their employees, you don't have that culture, that defined culture, to allow the foster of that type of element within your day-to-day work. And that's why I went back to that. You need to ensure that they have a defined culture. And so many organizations always say, oh yeah, we have defined culture here. But when you actually start asking questions, I think the first question I would ask is, well, how do you, like, if someone's interviewing me, how do you receive feedback? I'm not asking the employee that, or their soon-to-be employee. The employee or the soon-to-be employee is asking the boss that, who's doing the hiring. How do you receive feedback? Because I expect all of my staff to provide feedback to me. If it's not going well, I want them to provide feedback. It's probably no different than a student-teacher relationship. If I was a teacher in a business school and training students to become future business leaders, we should be training them to provide feedback on parts of the program that aren't sitting well, aren't working well. And it doesn't mean that the providing feedback means that you're going to get your way. That's the last thing. Providing feedback is a part of getting aligned to understanding what is required of you.
Yes, exactly. And then being able to make adjustments and being open to that feedback to improve each year and each month and each quarter. Yeah, excellent. That's great for the passion behind culture. It's not just all warm and fuzzies. It is certainly around both that accountability side, and when you've done a great job, that you can talk about the good things that went on, but then also when there's room for improvement, both to your supervisor, to your colleagues, and to yourself, that there's this culture, this way we do things around here, that we do want to talk about it. Yeah. What are your thoughts on the care side? And then go to your comment too, but
so care, I don't even know if it, I think it was Richard Branson who said this, that if you don't take care of your employees, you can't take care of your customer, and you might as well not be in business. There's this statement out there that the customer's always right. And I'm sure many of you have heard that statement before. It's not really an accurate statement. Customers can be wrong and employees and companies can be wrong. But part of that is that employees need to be able to have the freedom to be themselves. And so when I talk about care, ATB, and this is kind of a cool thing about ATB, so we have work-life flexibility that we really dig into. I know that my team has, they have their goals set out to them. I'm not monitoring their day-to-day hours if they're working 8 hours a day because it says on their paycheck that they're supposed to work 8 hours a day. I'm going to trust that they get that job done. They're adults. We're all adults. And I need them to do what's required of them. But if they get that work done in 6 hours or outside of normal business hours, that's something that ATB leans into. And the reason is because we're all busy. I'm a father, and maybe I'm a little bit of an older man now, but when my kids were younger, there were demands on me that I needed to get my kids to either after school sports or different things, doctor's appointments, that kind of stuff. And to have that stress to manage your family and then to be in your office chair or office work environment, by having that work-life balance, part of your culture allows that stress just to be removed from the employee because they're trying to manage their family and their work. And then if that falls through, there's still that 100% accountability and having conversations that hold people in check. Along with that is mental health. But the biggest part of mental health is recognizing within yourself that you need time or you need a spot to kind of reset or recharge or whatever that might be. So we encourage, mental health breaks. There's 2 or 3 days a year that an employee can just say, I just need the afternoon off. And I need that reset. And we say, okay, because we know long-term they're going to be more productive. Care side of leadership is huge. So I work hard at trying to learn not only my employees' names, which I should know, but my employees' spouses' names, my employees' kids' names, try to find out what they like. Like, do they like rodeo or do they like a hockey team or do they like the arts or whatever? And I try to connect with them on my one-on-one meetings, finding out what they like to do and have those conversations. So in short, that's called relationship building. And so I'm trying to build relationships so that that when there are troubled times or there are times of hard conversations, you have that relationship to fall back on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's so big. And whether we call it a courageous leadership or strong transformative leadership and modern leadership, that care component matters, because then you can draw upon that trust and that relationship between one another when we do go through hard times. Either we have to persevere together. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So great. That's awesome. Thank you. What are some of your thoughts around linking strategy and culture? Sometimes they're treated as two separate things. HR does culture and the executive does strategy. What do you think about managers and leaders bringing the two together?
Well, I think they have to be successful. If you've got an HR policy that no one ever reads or tries to implement, then it becomes just that, a policy. And I think I was trying to allude to that earlier. So culture is not about a policy. Yeah. Culture is about living it day in and day out and having those expectations around it. So we have mid-year and year-end performance reviews here within ATB, and actually every organization that I've worked for have that. And every component of mid-year is how you show up culturally amongst your teammates. And so you need to live within your culture in order to actually even get a performance rating at the end of the year. So
that's great.
Part of your remuneration and your bonus is part of how you show up day to day.
Yeah.
And if you're not showing up, and showing up can be different things. Showing up doesn't always mean the aggressor or the person that's coming in loud. Showing up could be not involved, being, the person in the corner that never says anything. That's not culture. Culture is about being involved and being engaged in your day-to-day operations in the company that you're working for. So you have to live it, you have to breathe it, and you have to buy into it. And I would say that if you don't buy into it, you probably shouldn't work for that company.
Yeah. There's a better fit for you elsewhere.
That's right. So let me throw the other side of that out, though.
Sure.
Because culture can be overdone that it became almost nauseous. So as an employee, it was nauseous because someone would come up to me and they would say, Trina, the way that you spoke in that meeting really had a negative impact on me. Can we talk about it? Now, there's nothing wrong with that statement by itself.
Right.
But when does it become a part where what's missing in that is that looking for that positive intent behind what that person was trying to communicate. You automatically assumed on yourself that it was negative towards you, and it might not have been what they intended.
Yeah.
But when you start having, after every meeting, that type of conversation, cleaning up after a meeting, you're not very effective. And it becomes almost counterproductive, I think.
Too much.
And then the other side of that would be, not, it's not the other side, the same side, just further down the path, is what builds in a very high culture performance is entitlement, employee entitlement. So employee entitlement, my definition of it is when we expect everything to land our way within our job. Whenever something goes bad, I'm not going to fix it. Someone else is going to fix it. I expect my organization to make sure I have those days off, that I have that extra mental health day. I'm going to make sure my organization makes it easy for me to do my job and all that kind of stuff. That's not culture. That's called doing your job. And I've seen organizations that have gone so culture focused that the entitlement becomes almost pungent.
Really that balance of the accountability and the care, the strategy and the culture, too much of one and not enough of the other.
It's like anything in life. Too much of anything can be harmful to you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Culture in an organization, in a company as well, I think.
For sure.
It has that opportunity to create that employee entitlement, which then is not healthy for the business long term.
Right, exactly. And that culture then is not serving the strategy. Right? We want to have a culture that aligns to the strategy that you need and for the business results that you need to generate. And so it's not just culture for the sake of culture. They need to go hand in hand.
I just didn't want anyone here to think that I was all, raw culture all the time. Like,
Yes.
I think it's important to know that there is too much.
That's right. Yes, exactly. And certainly we have to get work done together. We're not just, just having fun in our teams. We also have to achieve strong results together.
Yeah.
So need to have that balance. Agreed. Yeah. You and I have talked before about, so you have a strategy, you have a culture, assuming it's balanced and you're wanting to drive both. And I wish I would have wrote down the last time you and I chatted about the quote that you said, where really it's senior leaders and say middle managers' job to then set up structures, processes for your employee to be able to serve your customer. So can you tell us a little bit about, the middle manager and the senior leader's role in enabling your employees to serve your customers?
I personally believe as a leader, my job is, my customer is my employees.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So just like I want my employees to provide outstanding customer experience or customer service to my customers, I believe it's my personal responsibility to try to provide the best employee experience as possible for my employees.
Yeah.
And so what that means is, and if I don't, I kind of fail as being a leader. And what does that mean? Like, I have to manage the results of the organization to make sure we're profitable so that we can all get a paycheck, including my employee and myself, and be accountable to the board, I guess, for the higher up level. But if I'm not ensuring that my day-to-day management of my employees is purposeful, thoughtful, and with design, then I don't think I'm a very good leader. So I often do check-ins, and that's where, back to my other comment, that I ask for feedback from my employees. I ask for them to say, Lowell, are you doing a good job? And if they're courageous enough, and hopefully our culture allows them to be courageous enough to tell me where I can improve on. So I think it's important that I treat any of my staff members as that. And to be quite honest, I don't even, and you could talk to any of them and they would say Lowell probably doesn't see himself as the boss. I hate being called the boss. I hate being introduced as the boss. I see myself as a different cog in the wheel within ATB. My job is to make sure the strategy is implemented and being carried out while my employees are happy, and I have day-to-day duties that make sure that happens.
Yeah. And it's basically translating the higher level strategy down into day-to-day, that micro strategy that you talked about. Yeah. And I really like how you said that your employees are your customer and you're using a lot of purpose and intentionality and design about what their experience looks like, because that's how you retain them and how you attract the best people to your team and to ATB in general. And so I really appreciate that intentionality behind that.
Every person that I hire, my first conversation with them is this is your, and I've used the word already today, this is your business. I'm not going to micromanage you. I'm going to allow you to do your job. Here's your goals. Right. Here's what I expect of you, how you show up, and you do it.
Right. And that's strategy and culture, but translating it down to their experience of those.
Right. And then there's accountability that holds people in checks, because there's nothing worse. Nothing will get you fired faster than not following through on either culture or the strategy, right? You have to do your work. So.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, that's just fantastic. We've kind of covered the gamut of, high level macro strategy and then down to the employee level, and the balance of both strategy and culture being really crucial to high performing teams and how you have success as a business. So I think I'll leave it there as we close our interview today, and really appreciate your time and sharing your expertise and lessons you've learned over your career. So thank you so much, Lowell. Really appreciate it.
All good.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for joining us for today's episode of Strategy and Culture Conversations. If you found our discussion valuable, be sure to leave a review to grow our community and sign up for our newsletter at strategyandculture.ca to stay in the loop. Cheers to courageous leadership. I'll see you next time.